Coming up today in the Waine Train, we don't actually need to show you guys Champions League football because we're already qualified for the knockouts of that, but instead we're going to take on Aston Villa and Arsenal away in the Premier League because we might have gone from being top of the league a month and a half ago to now trying to cling on to a European qualifying spot. Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 35 of the Waine Train here on Sean Does FM with Plymouth Argyle. I hope you're doing well and coming up today a recap of what we've done off the back of yesterday's episode, and also, as I said, a bit of a change from what I said we'd be coming back for at the end of yesterday's episode, coming back slightly earlier to try and turn around some poor Premier League form, but it is going to be tough away from home against two teams who are inside the top four in Aston Villa and Arsenal, so if you're looking forward to that coming up in today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated. But in yesterday's episode, we took on Chelsea in the Premier League. Very entertaining game, that one, and then RB Leipzig in our toughest test at that date in the Champions League. If you missed the episode, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. At that point, we were still undefeated this season. Off the back of that, things haven't quite gone so well, albeit in the Champions League. We'll cover that off first. It has gone quite well as we played two more games in the month of November. First off, we took on Fenerbahce and did pick up a 2-0 win. Unfortunately, Ben Waine also didn't score in this game, but we picked up goals late in the first half through Alano Bando and then early in the second through Lamar Samardzic. So we did pick up there a fairly comfortable 2-0 win. But thankfully, in our most recent game, before we do come back for today's episode, the Waine Train finally scored a goal, albeit in a close run thing at home park, as we picked up a 3-2 win over Valencia. And it was Waine who did open the scoring here just past the 20-minute mark. We have the ball there down the left-hand side. Nice ball through there to Iliev. Squares it nicely for the Waine Train, who puts it home this time with a lot of composure. Unfortunately, just before half-time, Tobias decided we didn't want to win this game. Comes out to claim a ball there. Diakabe beats him to it, but thankfully, at the hour mark, we did go back in front. Sarari here inside the box. He will take on a shot there and gets that one past Ruben Blanco in goal to make it 2-1. But then, only a few minutes later down the other end, some poor set-piece defending, and Aranda puts it away. And it looks like here we're going to throw away some points. But thankfully, with only 5 minutes left in this game, Farias makes his way down the left-hand side. Waino plays that one back to Nicola Iliev. He picks up an assist to go alongside his goal, and we escape with a 3-2 win. We did actually go back to the 4-2-4 for this game, because in the couple of games prior, as you'll see shortly, because of our Premier League form, did change our formation just a little bit, as well as a couple of defensive roles. But unfortunately, Tobias has been in a pretty rough patch of form with the 4-2-4 of late. But thankfully, we do pick up a win in this game, because stats-wise, we definitely deserve it. And that means in terms of the Champions League, we have 5 wins from 5 and are already guaranteed to go through to the knockout playoff round of that competition this year. But to be fair, with our situation, 3 games left, I'd like to think we can do enough to hopefully make our way straight through to the round of 16, which would be very nice indeed. Also, something that's gone well off the back of yesterday's episode is the EFL Cup. In late October, we took on Fulham in the 4th round of that competition. To be fair, didn't actually play that well in this game, but thankfully did escape with a 1-0 win thanks to an early Facundo Farias goal. But it does mean we are through to the quarterfinals of that competition. It's quite a nice draw as we take on Middlesbrough from the Championship. And as you can see, the teams left in this competition, there aren't too many big ones. Arsenal take on West Brom in the only clash where 2 Premier League teams take on each other. But the other big team left in this comp is Chelsea. So it does actually look like the Carabao Cup this season might be quite winnable. And that's probably a good thing, because the most surprising for me off the back of yesterday's episode has been our form in the Premier League, because of course we were undefeated at the end of yesterday's episode. Then we took on Leeds United at home park and suffered a 3-1 defeat. Not really too sure how this happened, but it did just seems like our tactics stopped working here at Plymouth Argyle. Off the back of yesterday's episode, they did a number on us here, did Leeds United, despite the fact they only had 4 shots on target. As I said before, Tobias has not had a good time in goal off the back of yesterday's episode. Somehow we get somewhat FM'd in that game and lose 3-1. And then it didn't get better off the back of that. We travelled to St James's Park, and for the first time, I believe, this season, did not score a goal in a Premier League game as we got thumped 3-0 by Newcastle, all the goals coming inside the first half of it. The first half, it was quite an even game stats-wise, but XG-wise Newcastle certainly had the better of things, and despite the fact that going into that game, they were just outside of the relegation zone, we get hammered at St James's Park. So some really rough results off the back of yesterday's episode, albeit in between those two games, there was that win over Fulham, which did keep a little bit of faith in the 4-2-4, but we changed it up the next time we took on Fulham and actually went to a 4-1-1-4. So what we did was chuck Alex Scott forward into an advanced playmaker role to try and get him to go a little bit better, and we picked up a win here. So if only we could play Fulham every week, because they're the only couple of games that were run domestically off the back of yesterday's episode, but this one was a better performance. Goals there to Aliyev and to Sarawi. So thankfully we've won one Premier League game off the back of yesterday's episode, but then it didn't work against Bournemouth. We even went in this game late to a 4-3-3 to see if that would help. It didn't. We got beaten 1-0. To be fair, Bournemouth actually quite a good team, despite the fact they're back up in the Premier League, having just come back up from the Championship last season, but didn't play very well in this game, and an early Simeone goal did mean that we suffered a 1-0 defeat. So our form off the back of yesterday's episode has been really poor in the Premier League, and it does mean that we have dropped down the table. I was expecting that to happen a little bit, of course, as some teams behind us did have a game in hand, but we've dropped down quite significantly from first to sixth and are trying to cling on to a spot for European qualification for next season. If we don't get that, that would be a bit of a disaster, seeing as next season I was planning to be the last one of this save and would come back and do a new save early next year. So things not going too well for us here at Plymouth Argyle, at least in terms of the Premier League. As I said, have tinkered around with that tactic a little bit in a couple of games off the back of those two defeats where we did concede 3 goals against Leeds United and Newcastle. And what I've settled on going in to today's episode for these big games away at Aston Villa in 4th and Arsenal on top of the table, albeit they're about to take on Chelsea, so that could change. But we are going to try and stick here with the 4-2-4 gegenpress on attack, but I have changed our defensive roles. We're going to stick with those off the back of that Valencia game where we got back into some goal-scoring touch, because Gutierrez is actually quite good in that role. Both our wing-backs now we will use as complete wing-backs. We did try full-backs for a little bit, but unfortunately did just feel like it kind of cost us our flow in terms of goal-scoring. So going back to the wing-backs, and hopefully the complete ones will suit our players in the squad a little bit better. Also, Parola back from injury. That's another thing that could prove quite important today, because he's been missing for most of those games off the back of that injury picked up against Chelsea. He'll be a central defender, Diamonde, the ball-playing defender. I think Parola not quite as well suited to that, considering that his vision is only 10. So we're going to put him as a central defender. Diamonde has much better vision. He can stay as a ball-playing defender. And as well as that, we are dropping back to a standard defensive line. This is probably the main change off the back of that most recent game that we have played. Just want to see if this will help us stop conceding so many goals. Otherwise, we may need to change our tactical style to something else or try a different shape, albeit we tried that, as I said, in that Bournemouth game as well as those couple prior with a 4-1-4-1, chucking Scott forward to be an advanced playmaker, seeing as he is a little bit better rated there in terms of that star rating, at least in terms of on support, but it didn't really seem to help us defensively. I think having 2 DMs in the game this year is quite important. So we're going to try the standard defensive line, and hopefully this will get our mojo back with all those player roles in terms of attack being the same, considering that goal scoring wise, we are still one of the better teams in the Premier League, but hopefully we can sort out those goals conceded and pick up some important points. Otherwise, might make our life a bit interesting in trying to qualify for Europe next season, albeit off the back of today's episode, things do look on paper to get a lot easier, at least in terms of the Premier League, with games against the likes of Sunderland, West Brom, Southampton and Brighton before the start of January, when things pick up again against the likes of Chelsea and those 2 teams that we just suffered those heavy defeats to. So an interesting episode coming up today as we try and get back on track in the Premier League. And as I said, thankfully Parola is back from injury, and as well as that, pretty much everyone else except for Balumi, who's still recovering from that broken lower leg. And to be fair, he should be right when we come back for the start of next week. So our injury ward has certainly shrunk a lot off the back of yesterday's episode. Hopefully that might also help us pick up our form today. And as well as that, we've had a player come back from loan who we signed back in January. We've put him down in the under 21s, but he does look like a very good player. And Isaac Varel, we signed him from Hammarby over in Sweden. He went back out on loan for the comeback for the start of the season. But of course, Swedish seasons are a little bit different, but he's a bit of a Swiss Army knife to beef. You don't really know where we should be using him. He could actually be an extra striking option for us if we do get a suspension or an injury, but he looks like a very good, versatile player that we can call up if needed, and he's done a really good job over in Sweden since we did purchase him. 29 appearances, 10 goals, and 3 assists. He could be a player, if we get some injuries, who's very useful in the second half of the season, so one maybe to keep an eye out on come next week if we do pick up a couple more injuries, but certainly looks a good bargain that we did buy back in January for £1.3 million. But hopefully our regular first teamers can get the job done in today's episode, and we'll start things off at Villa Park and try and get back on track as we take on Aston Villa. And here are the team sheets for this first game of today's episode. There are Aston Villa coming to this one in some really good form and are also going with that 4-2-4. Hopefully this is a team that we could break down with that same formation. As I said before, we're quite close to full strength. The one change compared to normal, Whittaker out at right wing because Samadžić is on a heavy workload, quite injury prone. And also Irinkunda as the right wing backup, seeing as he is so injury prone, we'll put him there, and Farias as the left wing backup. But hopefully we can grab something from this game and stay inside a European qualifying spot. And 10 minutes in, the first highlight here does look like it's going to be in favour of Aston Villa. Plymouth Argyle today wearing the nice pink shirt as I am showing off, but hopefully the standard defensive line can work well for us today and get us back on track. Otherwise, might be a second game today where we try something completely different, might even bin off the gegenpress. Thankfully, Aston Villa there with a poor pass back, and Whittaker gets that one to Serginho Dest. A little bit loose on the ball there, but thankfully we do just keep it, albeit Alex Scott there with a poor pass. So far, just struggling to get the best out of him here at Plymouth Argyle, which is a bit worrying for a player that we're spending £92 million on, but thankfully loose touch there from, I think, Ramsey, and Simon Sommer gets that one back for us. Nice ball out there to Whittaker. Down that right-hand side, plays a lovely one over the top for Nikola Iliev. Forces a really good save there out of Emi Martinez, who has been transfer listed for most of the season so far, has just requested to come back off that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him in the January window. We'll see if we do anything from the subsequent corner, but unfortunately Whittaker is offside. Encouraging start, but unfortunately still 0-0. And nearly up to the half-hour mark, looks like another highlight here, which is going to be in our favourites, a corner, and I think there Parola got his head on the end of that one and forces a very good save out of the World Cup winner in Emi Martinez. So far looks like we're getting the better chances in this game, albeit might be a chance here for Aston Villa as they try and make their way out from back, albeit that's a really poor clearance. Scott plays that to Sarari, but then a poor pass looking for Iliev with a man right in front of him. So Aston Villa get a chance yet again to clear their lines, albeit doing a good job so far in this game and keeping them well hemmed back, at least in terms of this highlight. They pumped that one deep, but thankfully Gutierrez, as that complete wing back, can get that one back for us. Now Sarawi starts to make his way forward, looks for the top right corner. Martinez tips that one onto the woodworks. A couple of good chances from this highlight. Still on the attack here, Serginho Dest looking there for the Waine Train, but unfortunately can't quite find them. Ball does go out for a throw-in, but encouraging signs in the first couple of highlights of this game so far, but unfortunately still 0-0 at Villa Park, albeit now a throw-in down our left-hand side. Gutierrez just wins that ball back before Aston Villa do descend on us, albeit poor pass. Ollie Watkins can clear that one, but thankfully Diamonde, despite misjudging the flight of that one, can tidy things up. Now Tobias, as I said before, has been really poor off the back of yesterday's episode. He did find a teammate there, but poor pass, and it was a chance there for Aston Villa to spend some time on the ball, but thankfully we win it back. So far pressing them quite nicely, and Whittaker and Dest find some space down this right-hand side. Dest also playing as that complete wingback, floats that one to the mixer, can't quite find there. Iliev, I think it was Sarawi with a shot. That one comes off the woodwork. It goes out for a goal kick. So far, pretty unlucky not to have taken the lead in this game, and yet again, we're on the attack here through a corner with 10 minutes left in the first half. We take it short. Good work to get that one back to Iliev. Alex Scott will take on the shot, and this time we finally beat Emi Martinez and go 1-0 up. And to be fair, that has been coming for about the last 10 minutes of this game. Alex Scott scores his first competitive goal in a Plymouth Argyle shirt, and thankfully we get some reward for a sustained period of pressure inside the opening stages of this game. Hopefully now we can kick on and grab a second, but that's a good start to this one with that standard defensive line. Things looking a little bit better as we go 1-0 up. And just about to make our way now into injury time in this first half, and as I say that, we're going to have 2 minutes of it. There is a throw-in here to Aston Villa. Hopefully we can win the ball back and do something down the other end, but good short passing here. They somehow get a shot off there despite the fact we got a foot in, but thankfully it comes off the woodwork, so a chance there eventually for Aston Villa, but thankfully the woodwork does come to our rescue, and we head into the sheds with a 1-0 lead. And as you can tell from the stats in this game, we definitely deserve that. Hopefully we can keep this going and kick on in the second half. And to be fair, everyone out there is playing quite well, so I don't think any changes are needed. Hopefully we can just keep this going, grab a cushion goal and pick up 3 much needed points as we'll get the action back underway with a 1-0 lead. And just over 10 minutes into the second half, first half unfortunately does look like it might be in favour of the home team. Ramsey starts to cut inside, takes on a shot there looking for that top right corner. It clips the top of the crossbar and goes out for a goal kick. But while we're here, Sarawi at left wing not doing too well. We have options here between Nestri Irinkunda and Farias so far this season. Irinkunda has played better. He can come on and hopefully help us grab that cushion goal. And going forward about 10 minutes off the back of that previous highlight and substitution, now a couple of players down to red hearts, and also Nikola Iliev has picked up a yellow playing quite well, but we'll bring on Obando for him, and also we'll take off Whitaker as well as Scott on red hearts. We'll bring on Farias, he can go left wing, Irinkunda right, and Bischoff in that deep line playmaker role, and see if that helps us grab this cushion goal. And shortly off the back of that, in fact, now Simon Som down to red heart, our last sub. We could bring on Adam Randall, but just checking there with Jacob Graves seeing as the assistant recommended it, and he's better rated in terms of stars, so we might actually try that for these last 20 minutes as we look to hold on to our 1-0 lead, and we'll see in fact if this corner does take place. It doesn't, still 1-0 up. And just about to make our way into the last 10 minutes of this game, we desperately need the points here, so we're going to try and hold on to this 1-0 lead. To do that, we might actually try and put Jacob Graves as a halfback on defend. I do quite like that role. It should help us solidify things defensively, so we'll try that, and also time waste and be more disciplined, tell the goalkeeper to slow things down, and hopefully we can hold on and pick up 3 much needed points here with this 1-0 lead at Villa Park. And just making our way now into the dying stages of this game, very interesting to see that Garasai has gone off the field for Aston Villa, and they don't have a substitution, so they are now playing with 10 men, but despite that, they have a late corner. Hopefully they don't break our hearts here with only 10 men, because based on highlights, we definitely deserve something from this game. Hopefully all 3 points. Good block there from Farias at the near post. Off the back of that, we'll drop back to positive. Unfortunately, it doesn't work, so we'll go back attacking just in case we can do something off the back of the second corner in a row. They put that one into the mixer, and despite the fact they've done very little all game and they're down to 10 men, Pau Torres will put that one away. Off the back of that, we're going to put these players on some more attacking roles, and also just tell our guys not to do all those time wasty things that we did put in with around about 10 minutes to go. But that is so frustrating, having dominated this game for the most part, and also of course with Aston Villa these days being down to 10 men. Maybe should have saved up a sub for one of our defenders, as all of them are down to red hearts. But unfortunately Parola comes out to try and head that one away, doesn't quite get there before Pau Torres. It finds the bottom right corner, it makes it 1-1, and somehow we're going to only come away from this game with a point, which to be fair coming into it I would have taken, but at half time we really needed a second goal in that first half. I think it's fair to say second half we didn't actually do too much in terms of attack. Aston Villa, I guess, in most of the highlights, albeit there weren't too many of them, but they grab a late goal deep in injury time from a corner with 10 men, and it does mean it's a 1-1 draw. We'll just go forward here and see what that does to the Premier League table. Heading into our second game, where we do take on Arsenal at the Emirates. Of course, they're a team who so far we have not beaten here at Plymouth Argyle. I can see there that does mean we go down to 9th on the Premier League table. Not good for a team who, come the end of yesterday's episode, were still on top. But to be fair, that's not a bad result, but hopefully we can put out a similar performance and be a bit more clinical next up as we go and try and beat Arsenal for the first time. And we are back for the second game of today's episode as we try and finally get the better of Arsenal, who to be fair have started slipping up in their last couple of games, including against Chelsea when we picked up that draw against Aston Villa. In terms of us, a couple of changes here. Unfortunately, Parola gashed lower leg in training off the back of that first game, properly back from that arm injury, so it does mean that Reece Williams today will play at centre-back. Also, Randall Baldwin midfielder, and our wingers. Samardzic comes in on the right-hand side, and it will be Furrier starting out left just because some other players on a heavy workload, but hopefully we can continue from that good performance against Aston Villa where it felt a bit harsh. We only picked up a draw, and finally get a result here against Mikel Arteta's Arsenal, albeit the first highlight is in their favour. Samardzic gets in the way there, but somehow doesn't quite win that ball. Now Smith Rowe starts to cut inside. Reece Nelson just glides past his man there down that left-hand side, but thankfully that shot goes well wide. It's an early warning sign, but thankfully still nil early stages at the Emirates. And just coming up to the 12-minute mark in this game for Kundo, Farias has just picked up an orange injury. That's not ideal. He was quite injury-prone alongside the Waine Train last season, but yet again, Nestri Irinkunda can come off the bench and hopefully pick up some assists in this one. And now we make our way forward to the 20-minute mark, and there's another highlight here this time. It's a free kick in our favour as we do it to hold on the ball, and the Waine Train finds Serginho Dest in a ton of space, starts to cut inside, and for some reason looks to play that one to Alex Scott, albeit thankfully Gutierrez can tidy that up. Should be a lot of chances for us here to keep the ball. Eventually we do. I think that was through the Waine Train yet again, but then Dest again with a poor pass down that right-hand side for some reason. Today doesn't look like we want to keep hold of the ball, and Arsenal might get a chance to do something here on the counter-attack, which will be pretty frustrating, seeing as we had some players in a lot of space down the other end before, but thankfully Randall with a foot in there, and we do win the ball back, even though that tackle looked like it was nowhere near the ball. Now somehow a nice ball over the top there. It finds the Waine Train, not in a goal-scoring spot, but squares that one nicely for Nikola Iliev, his 10th goal of the season. The Waine Train will pick up an assist, and we take a 1-0 lead here fairly early at the Emirates. So hopefully the standard defensive line is going to continue working. Not too sure who actually played that ball forward to the Waine Train in the end, because it was a bit of a jumbled up mess down that right-hand side of ours, but thankfully Waino squares that nicely for Iliev in a good spot to hit that one across the face of Trubin in goal for Arsenal, and we take a 1-0 lead at the Emirates. And very shortly off the back of that opening goal, now a corner here in our favour. Reece Williams gets in a good spot to try and put that one away, but unfortunately it just goes wide. But looks like we're starting to get on the front foot with a 1-0 lead. And we're now into the last couple of minutes of this first half. Arsenal starting to get back on track in this game stats-wise off the back of that quick flurry that we did have, where we did score that opening goal through Iliev. Chance there. I'm not too sure who it is actually for, but thankfully it just goes wide of the target as they do look for that top right corner. Still 1-0 up as we make our way into 4 minutes of added time, quite a bit of it, and Odegaard puts this ball into the mix. So thankfully Diamonde deals with the danger somewhat, but Arsenal do still keep the ball here inside the box. Reece Nelson gets that one, but thankfully good interception that from Irinkunda, and plays it forward for his A-League brother in the Waine Train, plays it back to Dest, and thankfully does look like here we're going to keep hold of the ball. Good work there from Scott actually under pressure. We make our way now into the Arsenal half. Alex Scott off the back of that goal, which to get us that point at Aston Villa. Now Gutierrez forward there to Irinkunda. Fizzes that one into the mixer. It somehow takes a deflection and falls to the Waine Train. He picks up a goal yet again against big opposition. Maybe he's a big game player, even though that's definitely not what he is based on some of his traits on his player profile. But good work here. Gutierrez finds Irinkunda so responsible as actually getting the ball back down the other end, and it falls rather kindly to the Waine Train. Not good work here, I think, from the Arsenal goalkeeper, but that's a big cushion goal just before half-time, exactly what we wanted in that Aston Villa game. But this time we get it, to be fair, this one a lot more even stats-wise, but thankfully our finishing has been quite clinical, and we go into the sheds 2-0 up thanks to a goal to both our strikers. Now Miguel Gutierrez playing quite well, but is on a yellow card, so I think we'll take him off here at half-time for Diogo Spencer. We'll just see who's better suited to left-back between him or Serginho Dest. To be fair, doesn't look like it makes any difference at all, so I think we'll put him on his preferred side at right back and Dest out left for the second half, and also might just drop back to positive, so hopefully this time we can hold on to a lead, but a good first half, and hopefully we can beat Arsenal for the first time, up 2-0 after 45 minutes. And an early highlight here in the second half, and it might be a chance for us here from a free kick, and Samardzic is still on the field at right wing. Very good free kick taker with 16 attributes. That one goes very close, but unfortunately comes off the woodwork and goes out for a goal kick, and it's still 2-0 in our favour. And just coming up to the hour mark in this game, it's Serginho Dest out at left back, of course, after that switch at half time, only going fairly and is down to a bit of a deep yellow heart. So because of that, we'll bring on Sebastian Hausner. He can go to right back, Spencer out to left back, and instead of playing as a wing back, he can play as a full back I think that's a bit more suitable for him being usually a centre-back. Also, Samardzic off the back of that free kick is down to a 6.4. Morgan Williams can come on for him, and hopefully that will help us hold on to this 2-0 lead. And only a few minutes off the back of those previous changes now, a free kick here in our favour. Irankunda finds Helsner at the far post, coming on at full-back today, but he is usually a centre-back, and maybe that helps us from that set piece. Irankunda picks up his second assist off the back of that one for the Waine Train in the first half, and hopefully that goal's enough for us this time to pick up all 3 points to make it 3-0 at the Emirates. And not long off the back of that goal to Helsner, which will hopefully put this game to bed, there is here a free kick to Arsenal as the Waine Train does go down to a red. Hard, a bit reluctant to take him off when he's playing so well, but maybe it's a smart idea as somehow one of the Arsenal attackers finds himself in a fair bit of space and actually was onside. Thankfully, doesn't hit the target, but while we're here, we'll play things safe and bring on Pizarro for the Waine Train, who's had a very good game, gets a goal at the Emirates, but thankfully still up by 3-0. And only a couple of minutes on from that last substitution that we did make, now we're down the other end and yet again on the attack with a throw in. Helsner floats this one far post. He returns the favour from before. Nestor Irankunda with his first goal this season. I'm pretty sure his first goal in the Premier League. Irankunda making a really, really strong case here if this does get awarded, as it does, to be staying as left winger. Of course, he can be quite injury prone, which is why we haven't been staying him too much of late. Also, of course, Sarawi did come back from injury off the back of yesterday's episode, but that is a good header there, puts that one to the ground, and it beats Turbin at that near post, and surely now that is game over with only 10 minutes left. A 4-0 lead at the Emirates. This will be a big result for us, should see us hopefully get back inside of a European qualifying spot, and thankfully going to the standard defensive line does look like it has sorted us out and good defensively. Yet again, I think that might have been from Helsner to keep Reece Nelson there from getting a shot off, albeit he gets him behind. Diamonde tries to block that one, but he squares it for Ethan Wanere, and that is a goal back for Arsenal. Off the back of that, we'll play things safe and just slow down the tempo and also time waste a little bit. Probably don't need to with a 4-1 lead, but still, it's FM. Funny things can happen, but thankfully that tweak to the defensive line before today's episode does look like it's going to pay off. Got us back on track slightly with that draw at Aston Villa, and now we're bumping Arsenal 4-1. Hopefully no more highlights for them in these last couple of minutes. And just at the back of saying that, it looks like FM is going to try and worry me out of this game, as there is one here for Arsenal, albeit good for him there yet again from Helsner. He's been great since coming off the bench, as has Irankunda since coming on early for the Orange injured Barriers. Hopefully that one not too serious, albeit, as I said before, I think Irankunda now does deserve a good run in the first team. For some reason, Arsenal there don't look for a player on that right-hand side, and a ton of space. Good save that time from Tobias, but the Arsenal attacker there was actually offside. It's a bit of a waste of a highlight, but thankfully, now into 5 minutes of added time, and I don't think Arsenal have enough time to turn this one around, and that is a huge result. Arsenal there actually with the higher XG, which is a bit surprising because lots of the highlights there were in our favour, and we pick up a 4-1 win. The Waine Train got a goal. Nestor Irankunda, though, for me, the star with 2 assists and a goal. Also, Sebastian Helsner, some good defensive work once he did come on for Serginho Dest, but that is certainly an improvement in today's episode off the back of that form. Off the back of that episode we played yesterday, where things just went completely pear-shaped. Hopefully that will send us back up the Premier League table. A 4-1 win over Arsenal to get back on track in the Prem. So thankfully going to that standard defensive line has turned our fortunes around here domestically at Plymouth Argyle. A good 4-1 win over Arsenal off the back of that rather harsh late goal that we did concede at Aston Villa. Diamonde, a little bit of a fitness concern off the back of that game, so maybe need to rest him for Monaco next up in the Champions League. The game I said would come back for, but seeing as we're already qualified for the knockouts, we might just skip over that until we do hit those knockouts. But off the back of that match day, unfortunately, still not quite in a European qualifying spot unless some funny teams do win the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup. Hopefully, one of those teams is us, as that Carabao Cup does now look very winnable. But we are in 8th, albeit only 4 points off top spot. It is a very tight race at the top of the Premier League table this season. Currently, Chelsea, Aston Villa, and Liverpool joint on top, but with a couple of easier fixtures coming up in our next couple, as I said earlier, likes of Sunderland, Brighton, as well as Southampton, albeit those guys actually are above us on the table, but still those do look like more winnable fixtures than those ones we've just played. And off the back of a bit of a resurgence with that standard defensive line, hopefully we can pick up some points and make our way back into European reckoning, but currently it's a very tight race coming up towards the halfway stage of the Premier League. Hopefully we can get back up where we were only come the end of yesterday's episode and maybe get ourselves into a bit of a title fire at the very least. Make sure that we have Champions League football yet again to look forward to here at Plymouth Argyle next season. But that will do it for today's episode. Didn't come back for what I said we would, but still important games, and thankfully we did get back on track, albeit still outside of a European qualifying spot. If you enjoyed today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. We'll come back at the start of next week at some stage in January. Not too sure exactly when. Chelsea early is quite a big game. Also, of course, Newcastle and Leeds. We might want revenge against those guys. And also, there's Champions League games, the last two in the league phase, against Atletico Madrid and Inter Milan. Those could also be interesting, albeit if we're already qualified for the knockouts. Not too sure if there's much riding on those, so not really too sure what we'll be coming back for come the early stages of next week. It could also depend on if we get the job done against Middlesbrough in that EFL Cup quarterfinal, because then we might come back for the semis, because that might be a competition that we have a real chance of winning this season. So not too sure what we'll come back for, but pretty sure it'll be at some stage in January. And we'll also see if anything happens in the January transfer window. But until the start of next week, for some games in January, thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.